vou apresentar o professor, o Dr. Christian Pristipino. O Dr. Pristipino é um cardiologista intervencionista que mora em Roma, onde trabalha em um hospital público desde o ano de 2000. Ele é o presidente e fundador da Associação Italiana de Medicina de Sistemas de Saúde e é coeditor de um livro sobre abordagens sistêmicas na doença isquêmica do coração. O Dr. Pristipino também fundou, em 2013, o primeiro centro hospitalar de medicina personalizada e sistêmica no Hospital San Filippo Neri, em Roma. O Dr. Pristipino colabora com a Sociedade Italiana de Sistemas em congressos, publicações e pesquisas desde 2013. Just to add that I first met Dr. Pristipino in the Congress of the Organization of Systems and Cybernetics in Rome in 2017. On that occasion, Dr. Pristipino gave a keynote with the title From Precision Medicine to Systems Medicine, Clinical and Social Implications. For those of you interested on this talk, this keynote has been recorded and is available at the VOSC website. Preciso dizer também ainda que, e depois eu vou falar isso em inglês para o Dr. Pristipino, nós agradecemos muito a presença dele, né? Ele vai falar do hospital onde trabalha, está envolvido nesse momento com o problema da Covid em Roma, então uma situação muito difícil e nós agradecemos muito a presença dele. I was just saying, Dr. Pristipino, that...
Yeah, I understood.
Well, great. You already understand in Portuguese, so thank you very much, particularly considering this difficult time in Rome, in Italy, and your hospital. Preciso explicar também que a palestra do Dr. Pristipino, ela vai ser transmitida e depois da transmissão, porque ela já foi gravada, depois da transmissão, então, nós vamos ter uma sessão de discussão. E isso foi decidido assim, em conjunto com o Dr. Pristipino, porque ele estava preocupado com possibilidades de flutuação na rede, de cair a conexão e tudo mais. Então, para garantir isso, é que a palestra foi gravada, ele mandou para a gente e nós vamos transmiti-la agora. So, Dr. Pristipino, I invite you to say maybe a few introductory words, and after that, we will start with the broadcast.
Sure. Thank you very much, Sandro. It's really a pleasure meeting you again after all these years, and it's a pleasure to be here with Brazilian system mates, let's say. It's really a pleasure. I am really we in Italy are very connected with Brazilians. We have very deep feelings for between our two countries. We are very similar, I think, from many respects, and so it's for me an honor to be here. I really appreciate your invitation, and I hope this can be the starting point for new collaborations on systems approaches at large. Sure. So I don't want to steal more time to the Congress, and just to say that I am really honored to be here and to nourish this friendship that is going to grow in next years.
Thank you very much for these kind words, Christian. No, Eliomar, você pode começar? Okay, we will start. Eliomar, não dá para ouvir nada.
Ladies and gentlemen, bom dia. And that's all my Brazilian, unfortunately. I would like to speak Brazilian, but that's all what I can say. It's a pleasure to be here. I thank you very much, Dr. Sandro Luis Schlindwein, for the kind invitation here. Talk will be on systems medicine and the future of public health systems. Of course, this is a very wide subject. I will try to trace some main aspect of systems approaches in medicine. Well, first of all, we are right in the middle of a revolution in medicine, even in the epistemology of medicine. This is a recent book by Eric Topol, in which creative destruction of medicine is presented. Also, a new era of precision medicine by the NIH and the President Barack Obama in the State of the Union address in 2015. It's now already 5 years, where he launched this precision medicine initiative. This is a long way of an ongoing revolution from purely clinical approach, when in the 1700s, the new and modern classification of diseases was introduced by François Boissier de Sauvage, where all the diseases were classified according to their clinical presentation. That's to say, the symptoms affecting one organ or the other. And still today, we have this classification. All our knowledge, medical knowledge, is based on this first classification. However, the first new revolution regarding this approach, we had to wait more than 200 years, when in 1949, Pauling, Itano, Singer, and Wells spoke about, for the first time, of a molecular disease, the sickle cell anemia. Here we change paradigm. We don't look anymore at the appearance, manifestations of the disease, but we look at the processes, the mechanisms that are behind the clinical manifestation. This would seem odd for us now, but it has been a really a conquest that we had. All medicine has been based since then on a paradigm which was one gene, one protein, one disease. This means that, for example, in the Huntington disease, a very severe form of cerebral atrophy, as you can see in the upper part of this picture. Here is a diseased brain, and here is a normal brain. As you can see, there is a sharp difference in the mass of the brain, which is degenerating. And this disease is caused by a single mutation on the short arm of chromosome 4, where there is an abnormal gene. So the problem is that this mutation of a single gene should translate in only one clinical manifestation. Instead, we have more than one phenotype, what we call phenotype. That means manifestations. Why so? Because there is epigenetics, means all the mechanism of regulation of the genes, which can be masked or looped by histones, as you can see, and in different methylation or chemical reaction phosphorylation of some genes, they may be activated or deactivated, or even repressed by not untangling them around histones. So we have very complex mechanism around the regulation of genes, which are maybe linear, but also circular, and very complex mechanism with loops and feedbacks. These cause, of course, the Huntington disease not to be called anymore a disease, but diseases. It's a bunch of clinical manifestations which are different, but they are not caused anymore by one single gene. The genetic abnormality is still the same in all the patients, but it's different the way of regulating and expressing this gene, and this causes different phenotypes. This is why clinical disease has been changed into the search for molecular basis of these clinical diseases towards a personalized medicine, and therefore the inclusion of complexity in the paradigm of medicine. In fact, this complexity has been started to be considered in systems biology with the development of the whole genome in the beginning of this century, with the discovery that all genes were connected to each other. Moreover, the discovery that chemical pathways are all connected and form a network which becomes less than deterministic and also very complex in its output. This led to an inclusive and wide development of approaches that built up the systems biology approach. Then also all these approaches combined together made possible the modelization of cells in silico, finding in vitro experimental proofs, and then with in vivo translation with animal and human models. In the meanwhile, while we were getting into depth the molecular basis of diseases, there was psychoneuroendocrino immunology, which developed the study of the networks and of the complexity of the body in a higher level of organization, from going up from the cellular level to the organ level and the interaction between organs and diseases themselves. For example, this is a map of different diseases which are connected by the same genetic expressions or processes. This led to the concept of the complex phenotype, in which a single patient could be characterized by the molecular level with genetic dimensions, but also microbiome, which means all the intestinal flora we have, the metabolome, the proteome, transcriptome, genome, and all the way up to the clinical level with imaging and biosensors, but also to the social dimensions and even to environment. All these are represented by different planes, as you see, but it would be more appropriate to represent this as a gas, because with concentric dimensions of gas, because all these are interacting each other. For example, environmental dimension can influence directly the genome, the transcriptome, the proteome, the metabolome, the epigenome, and the exposome as well. So what you see is not just the separation of layers, but all these dimensions, despite being organized at different level, they are all interacting with each other. Moreover, not only the discovery of this static picture of one moment, but this picture can be dynamic. In fact, it was a new discovery that the molecular level and diseases, we know that the clinical diseases can have different phenotypes with clinical phenotypes of molecular mechanisms, as we have said, but these phenotypes can be mixed in the same individual according to time. A same person can show a phenotype of different molecular mechanisms as the time passes. So you cannot say this person is like that, but this person is like that in a certain time. So these pictures should be dynamic and longitudinal. So all these brought really a deep wind of change in medicine, both at the medical level and the social level. The key to change of medicine was implemented, and we just now try to get into greater detail in this. The first thing is that all these that we have seen is not just a change in vision of medicine, but it's a different approach, radically different approach. We need to flip our old approach because it's all about lenses of observation. We need to change this from reductionist to system science. Of course, I will not get into great detail here because you are all experts of what is the difference. But in medicine, it's interesting to see that with the reductionist paradigm, we just split it apart, all the body of human body in organs and systems with specializations. And what we want to do now is to unify all this in a holistic, more holistic approach, with in which time, space, and context which were excluded in reductionism are now considered as the main components of a system. Therefore, studying interrelationship first and dynamics because more than the single characteristics of the nodes of a network, because we think we know that by under the systemic light, the characteristics of the properties of each node vary according to the relationship it brings with other nodes. Therefore, we shift a paradigm of medical treatments which are disease-driven, aimed for normalcy, finding an average patient which, by instance, doesn't exist, and is addictive. It means that drugs are summed, and at the end, any patient turns out to have a kind of 20 or 30 medications. Instead, medical treatments with system science become individualized, studying the dynamics of relations of very particular individual, multidimensional use of the same drugs with drug repurposing, time is time sensitive, space sensitive, and synergistic instead of addictive. This, of course, brings us to this very big change in medicine, and we need for this particular specific education to be developed, in which specific systemic approaches, even in education, is absolutely indicated. Changing the core curricula of doctors, of students. This means a complete restructuration of medical education at the university. First of all, complex phenotypes. As we've seen, patients are characterized by different perspectives on the same patient, starting from the genetic dimensions, endotypes, clinical phenotypes, lifestyle, and environmental network with social influences. This brings us to a reclassification of diseases, that more than being diseases, those become the classification of person themselves, with a rebuilding of connections between the nodes of a person, of the data of a person, to be able to develop and to have new insights on patients' organization. At the medical level, we have several fallouts. We have companion diagnostic tests, which supply the information necessary to prescribe the most effective treatment. We have personalized medicine, and also we can have, with these approaches, diagnosis and prediction in how this dynamic system organizes during time. The scientific fallout is it's profound as well. It means that we need an outcome reassessment, complete outcome reassessment in different pictures, because what we thought being a single disease, as we have seen, we can consider them syndromes, that's to say, different diseases all put together with the wrong classification, which is just clinical. And then all outcomes should be reassessed according to the new classifications. This also implies new study designs, not only because the selection criteria of patients change, but also because the dynamic of what we want to study and to find it's changed completely. We can have mechanistic studies, but not only mechanistic studies, also complex design. And also reconsider evidence hierarchy, because with these new approaches, randomized studies may be reconsidered as the top level of the evidence, since, for example, taking to the extreme this approach, we will have really individualized medicine. Therefore, we can develop studies on only one patient. So, as you can understand, on one patient, it's impossible to make randomized studies. Moreover, regarding the social and the environmental variables that influence the structure and the organization of each person, even the biomedical one, we can have environment, as I said, climate changes, the interaction with fauna and with flora, and all these also are connected to each other, but not only, but they are also mediated by a number of subsystems like economic, religious, social, cultural, psychological, and material culture. So all these are mediated and makes the social environmental ecosystem, which have profound influence on the biomedical dimension. This means that we need to develop new approaches with interdisciplinarity and interprofessionalism, which also, again, impact heavily on core curricula. What do we need at a societal point of view as an infrastructure? For example, first of all, we need professional networks in which the approach to one single patient, even the more we individualize it, the less we can handle it alone. So this interprofessionalism, as I was saying, need to be organized in networks, in an integrated platform, hopefully on electronic basis, so the World Wide Web and Internet of Things. However, regarding the informatization of our society is still unsatisfactory. As you see, not many nations are already ready for an electronic health record, as per a survey of 3 years ago. But the situation is not changed much right now. Also, to organize this new structure of healthcare, we need a living organization modeling and not anymore a fixed and rigid way of organizing healthcare, as also this pandemic is showing us the rigidity in the structure of our healthcare systems is causing big problems and a big lack of resilience that we could allow us to face unforecasted events like the black swan, as Taleb would say. So a living organization modeling in which to structure the new health system. Also, learning organizations should be leading to have the right resilience. The characteristic, as you can see, of a learning organization is that learning paradigm is based on vision, focus on collaboration, and on customer satisfaction, in this case, patient satisfaction. It's team-focused, enable initiative, power is given to knowledge and not to position, and use information to empower all the nodes of the network. And the control is through vision, culture, and technology, and also interaction and solidarity, while industrial paradigm, you see, is completely different. Also, the personalized care needs a localized care. This means that a common paradigm based on vision is distributed and adapted to local needs with local organizations that could monitor and follow each patient in his own context. For this reason, it is important to build local repositories that could be centralized with a cloud system of data harvesting. Also, of course, we need the watchful implementation of all this with keeping the attention on sustainability, which is a key factor for the success of this approach. As per the complex phenotypization of patients, so coming out from the classic paradigm of disease, of symptom-oriented disease classified, but classification of persons, as I recall what we were saying, we need stations, kind of station, local station, quarter or city-based stations where people could be phenotypized. These need, of course, bridging divides, both geographic and economic, of course. But the digital know-how can help in this endeavor with the wearable devices, with portable, different kind of wearable devices, which can be analyzed as smart homes or even decentralized consultation stations where people can have teleconsulting. And this could also be also important to build research databases with Internet of Things and artificial intelligence helping in untangle this. The more we have a cloud of data around each patient, the more we have the need for technology, like for deep learning or artificial intelligence at large. As you see, there are a lot of investment in this field also in healthcare. This will lead, of course, to copyright issues. We need to have a regulation on this for models and in silico experiments, which will be, of course, branded, and also artificial intelligence and machine learning brands, with also systems of artificial intelligence, like with expert systems and softwares, dedicated software. Of course, this raises a lot of issues regarding privacy, with the problem of hacker attacks and also a terrorist attack with informatic means. However, what we shouldn't forget is that this quantification with quantitative approach to person, trying to model each person with graphs and networks, in fact, is not completely describing human possibilities. In fact, as per the pioneering studies of Fabrizio Benedetti in Turin, we see that qualitative stimuli on the brain of the patient in fact activate a number of biological and biomedical pathways, transforming therefore qualitative stimuli into biomedical and biological mediators, for example. This, of course, breaks the paradigm of a purely quantitative approach to human complexity. And in fact, it needs to be in these new systemic systems medicine approach also the qualitative instruments like medical humanities, counseling, health psychology, health promotion, or educational medicine, just to make some examples. All these finally will be able to, at last, bring up the paradigm of the evidence-based medicine triad, which always has been focusing on the best external evidence. But the evidence-based medicine is not based on this aspect, but also in the patient values and expectation, individual clinical expertise of the doctor, of the physician, but also, as I was saying, in the qualitative dimensions of patients. This is evidence-based medicine, the superposition of these three dimensions. This brings us to the personalized medicine paradigm with Leroy Hood and Charles Frey in France that have developed this model of predictive, personalized, preventive, and participatory medicine, which will be the paradigm of course, of systems medicine. Indeed, the qualitative dimensions of patients, the subjective dimensions, as published in New England, as you see, patient-reported outcomes instead of usual care improved the prognosis of these patients, meaning that patients that fixed their own objectives had much better outcomes, even for hard outcomes. This brings a completely new change of the perspective of the patients, which transform from patient to partner, where an active participation to the caring process is achieved also by a granular information and diffusion of knowledge, and new forms, the ensuing new forms of representation. We have some example here. For example, the All of Us research program in the States by the NIH, the PCORI in England, a U party in Europe. All these initiatives are forming expert patients who can participate in the formulation of clinical pathways with medical authorities, and also participate into guidelines writing in different aspects. This means that we need to find a common dimension between caring professionals and patients with a new interaction. Of course, these precision medicine or systems medicine approaches need a strong political endorsement. We do not have to be naive here. These need money and political support. Indeed, individualized treatment development raise an issue of costs, and therefore we need to understand very well what is the value for money that we are developing. This can be achieved at public-private partnership. I have to say that in this COVID period, a lot of new initiatives of co-financing were put in place all over the world with negotiated prices to help countries with low income. The rising procedure costs that are inherent to this new approach interest both diagnostic and therapies, and but can be matched by an higher success rates of therapies, more timely therapies, and improved outcomes. This means that the value per money will increase its advantages. Also, less side effects, less diagnostic procedures, yes, less iatrogeny, that means the damages done by medicine. Shorter times to remission, reduced legal costs will all impact in this cost effectiveness evaluation. Therefore, you see, I tried to trace what has been going on since the revolution of from purely clinical approaches to molecular, but we still have a lot of route in front of us. And now we are really in a changing moment, and we will have to see how this will evolve in the next years. For this reason, there is the European Society of Systems Medicine, who invites you all to our next conference, the third one, which will be held in Barcelona in Spain from 10-12 November 2021. And it will be entitled Systems Medicine Approaches to Global Challenges, driven by this pandemic, to which systems medicine really could bring new resilience, new therapies, new perspective to improve our health. And with this, I thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pristipino, for this stimulating keynote. To my view, it raises several issues and questions, and now we have time for discussion. So for those of you who want to make questions, please raise your hand. You can also use the chat. For those, you can also make your question in Portuguese that I will try to translate it. So we are waiting for questions already. Does anyone has already a question? Maybe I will start with a question, Mr. Pristipino, as a way to stimulate the audience to engage in the discussion. And my question is related to one of your last points about this issue of costs, because I'm thinking if it is feasible to have or to have a public health system based entirely on systems medicine, because in Brazil, for instance, the public health systems plays a very important role, to assist the population. I don't know how is the health system in Italy, but I think this issue of cost is a very important one, and maybe you can develop a little bit more on this issue. So what is going on? Christian, your microphone is off. Alô? Eu não sei, Leomar, se o doutor, se o Christian ainda está aí.
Sim, está, Sandro.
Aparentemente está, mas com o microfone fechado. Agora abriu o microfone.
Oh, yes, now.
Yeah.
Yes, okay. I don't know, Christian, if you heard my question.
I couldn't hear you.
You could not.
Because the connection is not so good to hear.
Okay, I will repeat. No, because I was beginning with the discussion as a way to stimulate the audience to participate and to engage in the discussion. And my question was related to one of your last points regarding the cost of medicine. In Brazil, we have a public health systems, which is a very important for the whole population. I don't know how is the health systems in Italy, but you can imagine that, or do you think that it would be feasible to have a health system based entirely on systems medicine, considering the cost of this kind of approach?
Yeah, of course. That's a very good question. An open problem still. It is very difficult to imagine that such a revolution that can change completely the way we practice medicine every day. So, of course, the problem is still on the floor, and there is no answer, because we really don't know yet when if the costs will be sustainable or not. Mm-hmm. But we have to say that, as I tried to show during the talk, is that there are some issues that makes us hopeful with this regard, because we think that what we will save from unuseful exams, unuseful drugs, and limit and really have a personalized approach. This could really help to gain the money that we can have to spend at first. We do not have to forget that at the moment, all the drugs and the therapies that we use in medicine have a number needed to treat which is above 1 and above 2. What is the number needed to treat? The number needed to treat is the number of people you have to treat with that drug or with that therapy at large, to save one event in the follow-up. For example, one of the most effective treatments that we have is the cordaron, the amiodarone. The amiodarone is a drug that prevents the heart to undergo an arrhythmias, which is called atrial fibrillation. This is one of the most effective drugs that we have, and we need to treat 4 people with this drug in order to avoid one event of atrial fibrillation in the follow-up. This is one of the most effective drugs that we have, because the others have some numbers needed to treat of 10, 20, 40, etc. So can you imagine that such effective drug needs to be given to 4 people to avoid one single event? It means that you give the drug to 3 people without any effect. The problem is that we are not able to say to which people this drug will be effective or not. So we have to give it to everyone. With systems approach, coming to a more personalized model of medicine, we await to avoid. It's true that we will spend more probably for understanding to whom you have to give this drug or not, but you save 3 persons that not only you will give without any effect the drug, but you in these 3 people that not only they will not have an effect, but they will have also side effects of the drugs. So you will save this money in this way. You spend more on one side, but you save money on the other side. Moreover, having more precise medicine, you also have less legal disputes. In this way, all the costs of what we call here defensive medicine will drop, because doctors will not make or take unuseful steps in diagnosis or even in treatment, because they will feel to be right and to be reliable in their diagnosis and their treatment. I don't know if I answered in some way.
Yeah, I think for me is that let's say the cost of unintended consequences will be lower. No?
Yeah, also, yeah, exactly.
So we have a question from the audience, Alfredo Fantini.
Hey, hi there. Good afternoon,
Hello.
Dr. Christian. Thank you for your nice presentation. And I would rather bring you a kind of provocation.
Yeah.
You told us about what I would say a revolution in medicine, an amazing revolution, which brings us, for one hand, a lot of hope, and on the other, a lot of concerns. And one of the concerns is whether this new medicine will be available in different countries because of the difference in everything, and even within countries like Brazil, because we have not only one, but a lot of Brazils. So it may be the case that in the same way as the advance in monitoring and new examination methods and etc., that this new medicine will bring us put us in a new level of difference in access to a good medicine. And the other concern is the use of a lot of valuable information this system will bring. The use for private health care systems and so on, the labs and etc.
That's a provocation. That's a great question. That's not a provocation. It's a real source of concern for everyone to not to increase the gap between the inequalities across the planet, of course. Well, I can tell you, I could say a lot of theoretical things to answer to this, but I will try to answer with an example. During the COVID now time, we have witnessed a very particular reaction from the world of systems medicine. We have seen that to face this global challenge, in fact, people and also institutions joined together to try to develop accessible medicine and tools according to systems approach. For example, there in India, they have built a very interesting example with a platform which made to come together more than 60 different institutions with a new paradigm of open science and participative researches, putting together all the data sharing all the data and making it available to each one by communications in a way that everyone could look into the data, elaborate new theories, share it with all the others, and develop new approaches, new solutions, without any form of gain at the beginning, at least. And these kind of initiatives are spreading all over during this COVID emergency. And that's very interesting, because we see that even if the human kind has been the source, probably, of this pandemic, we are reacting in such a way. Of course, there are reasons to be pessimistic, but there are also reasons to be very optimistic, because we see that people can react together and come together to find solutions which will be accessible to people. For example, also look at I will not say the name, but there are some drug industries that are going to develop the vaccine almost for free, without no gain at all for each dose. I mean, they will sell the vaccine for $2 per dose. So we think that, in fact, this systems approach, of course, carry some problem of costs, but they can be looked over by a new way of making ecosystems also among people. It's very interesting that to make it available to everyone, people are open to give up their economical gains, and trying to keep lower the development of new approaches. So that's, I think, a very nice source of hope for keeping the inequalities under control, while developing new approaches in medicine. I mean, as systemic people, we should know that that any change has to occur at multiple levels. So as this is an epistemologic change, it's not only a technical one, I mean a medical one. It brings with it a new way of seeing human relationships. And with putting together solidarity and help, mutual help. And I have to say that we in Italy, with our Italian Association of Systems Medicine, are participating to another initiative in 6 continents with over 50 research institutes that want to put together all the data and giving up to copyright gains, just to share the new discoveries and to make this in a sustainable way. So I think those are really nice and unexpected fallouts of systems approaches, epistemologic systems approaches, because it applies also to human relationships and not only to scientific ones.
Okay, thank you very much. Just to say that I am in the optimistic side.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Thank you. Grazie.
Thank you. We have a question and 2 comments. I will read first the 2 comments because I think they are related to these last questions. Comments made by Márcio Vasconcelos Pinto. The first one is a new level of inequalities and iniquities, what already has been addressed by Dr. Pristipino. And we will need to deal with a lot of cognitive complexity, as Professor Jackson said on the morning lecture. Well, Márcio is here with his comment relating your talk or your answers, Dr. Pristipino, with the talk we had early in the morning today. No? And now we have a question. Please, Raquel Rangel Cesario. Your microphone is off. Good.
Hello, good afternoon. Congratulations. You bring us a very stimulating issue. I am from a medical school, and we have a long way to learn on this issue in Brazil, but it is the future, you know? So we need to learn on this. And I have a very particular curiosity in COVID times. Do you know any research work on vaccines development made by a systemic approach techniques? Apart from drugs and health systems, but is there anyone thinking or developing vaccines in this systemic approach?
Not any that I am aware of. I can just say that vaccines themselves have a kind of systemic basement in the concept, but using precision approaches as those that I have summarized in my talk, of course, could be a very interesting issue, because you could focus on developing vaccines only to people that will respond to it, and different kind. You see now we have around 50 new vaccines that are being developed for COVID, with some of them with very, very different mechanism of action. Some of them are very innovative, but we don't know which people will respond to one or to the other. Of course, it could be a very interesting issue. Well, the project that we are on, as I was saying, as Italian Association of Systems Medicine, with Charles Offray in France, is led by him, this project, as I was saying, in 6 continents. It's just on these issues. Try to understand to personalize medicine in COVID response. This means to make a deep phenotypization of people, from the genes to their social and networks, psychological characteristics, clinical characteristics, and also environmental characteristics. When we will have built such a model, it will be easier also to test for vaccines, of course. But I am not aware of any specific project towards this, but this is, of course, a very interesting topic.
Grazie.
Prego.
So thank you very much. We still have time for more questions. Anybody else?
Yes, I have a question. Did you hear me?
Yes, please.
Okay. First, congratulations, Professor Christian. Was great presentation. My question is the following: consider systems medicine has a lot of interface with, as far as I understood, with the life of the person, with the environment of the person, as part of the the need of information and knowledge to construct a personalized solution. Do you think, or have you seen research say how much of the systems medicine can be recommending changes outside of medicine, such as improving people's environment or improving people's labor condition or whatever other phenotypical characteristics may be relevant? This is common, like system medicine will go towards also recommending things outside of medicine, since this is a very holistic approach?
Sure it is, of course. The environmental and social network approaches are for sure one of the pivots of this new approach. So it's for sure that with the time passing, it will be addressed also this kind of recommendations. The only problem is that, and that's an issue, you pointed out very well. I think there is a good occasion to point it out. I didn't have the time to develop it in my talk, but one of the limitations of this approach is that we can use this new technology in a reductionist way. Because if we don't use it in a complex perspective, the risk is to use all this new technology as a complicated reductionism, and not a complex shift in approach. So, and this is a really danger, because our thought is not as far. The average epistemological approach of researchers and of doctors and of nurses and all healthcare system is not as far as advanced as those that pushed forward this new approach. So we should make a very wide. We have to do this very wide educational project to go aside the technological one, because otherwise we will have very complicated approaches that are systemic per se, but they will be used as a reductionist tool. That's to say, we will just use very complicated analysis, but we will not open to a real systems thinking in their implementation. So, of course, it's extremely important to develop also all what is aside just the personalization of drugs, and going beyond to social approaches and even to human and emotional approaches. That's why, for example, in the Italian Association, but also in the European Association of Systems Medicine, we are developing a part which cannot be quantified by science, and it's also only qualitative approaches. As I said, I had the chance to publish this book with one of my colleagues here in Rome. That is the psychotherapy, for example, for ischemic heart disease. We have seen that giving psychotherapy to people that had a recent myocardial infarction really had a change in medical outcomes, not in psychological outcomes. It changed the events, the biological events, the medical events. This means that there is a superposition of different dimensions that cannot be reduced to one. Not everything can be reduced to biological dimension. So we need to put together all these different dimensions: psychological, social, environmental, and also, of course, molecular and biological ones. But we cannot collapse them into only one. Otherwise, this will be the disruption of systemic thinking by systemics approach. It would be a kind of very paradox, a big paradox.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody
Perfect.
else?
Thank you.
Anybody else? I think we still have time for one question. Well, I have one question more, maybe, since nobody is asking or raised hands. So my question maybe is related to the last point and to the issue of education and curricula development, because universities and medicine schools, to my view, are per definition conservative organizations. So the issue is, or the question is, how those institutions are responding to the challenge of developing curricula to address this kind of medicine approach, which is based, let's say, on complexity.
That's a great question. In fact, the first thing I would say is that they are very eager to pick up this new approach, but in a reductionist way, as I said. The structures of universities are extremely rigid, and it's very difficult to inject a new way of thinking. Well, and I think you are even more experts than I am, just being a doctor, but the problem is that even to make education with systems approaches would need a complete disruption also of the way of we do education. We need even physical disruption. I mean, you cannot make systems education with rooms or classes made in a frontal way, in which there is one person that is speaking and all the others are just listening. You would need the seats of these classrooms to be changed, to be moved. You need the infrastructure change, even infrastructure change. So I think it will be hard. Here we are questioning a lot on this point, and we are trying to understand if it's possible. There are a lot of course, of academics in Italy that are really very experts of systems thinking, and we are trying to figure out if it's possible to make it changing in a smooth way from the inside, or if we need a complete shock, putting and building new free universities that approach knowledge in a completely different way from the outside of the academic world. We are just figuring out if one or the other is the best way. At the moment, we are trying to enter the academic world and trying to promote this new way of thinking, but it's extremely hard. Also, because you face resistances that are economically driven, unfortunately. So there is power issues, there are power issues, there are economic issues, economic interests that you are going to disturb.
Okay, thank you very much. So anybody else? There is maybe a comment. Let's see. Well, it was a comment made by Márcio Vasconcelos, agreeing with your response to his question, I guess. So I think we are on time. Eliomar, we can maybe finish this session now. Yes?
Yes, that.
Okay. So, Dr. Principino, on behalf of the organizing committee, thank you very much for your wonderful presentation, for your time. No, grazie mille. No, and our all best wishes to you, to Italy, and to Rome. No, thank you very much.
Obrigado.